Okay, welcome everyone to our Solidarities Brewing call. We have these calls bi-weekly, and this week we are going to be talking about strikes and strike support. Very exciting to see so many strikes across the country. So we're going to start off talking about what the campaign is. We're going to hear from one of our comrades who is a Starbucks Workers United barista and lead organizer and DSA member. Hear a report back from Boston, where they've been on, whether they are on day 29 of a indefinite strike, which is very exciting. And then Corey from Worcester is going to be talking about the strike support they've been doing. And then Jacob from Eugene is going to be talking about what's going on in Eugene, with lots of strikes going on there as well. And then we have our friend Sarah, who's going to be talking about the Labor Day calls to action for all of us across the country with the Adopt a Store program. And then we will have some time for Q&A at the end. And so this campaign, we at DSA has voted to prioritize supporting Starbucks workers who are unionizing across the country, more than 220 stores, less than a year out. Very, very exciting, but we always have to keep in mind that nothing should be done for the workers without the workers. We take direction from the workers. We're all very excited to support, but the workers know best what makes sense in their context, in their store with their coworkers. So we always have to make sure that any solidarity action needs to be coordinated with and getting consent from the workers. And here we have a picture of our friends in Buffalo who were on strike, have been on strike because one of their coworkers, Sam, was fired. The timeline of what is going on is going to look different in different stores. But the beginning of any organizing campaign is workers building relationships with each other. And then they form an organizing committee. They sign cards and submit them to the NLRB for their pre-election hearing if they need to do that. The NLRB gives an election date, and hopefully the union wins. Most of the stores have been winning, but then bargaining begins. And so this is going to be a sustained fight, and we need to support over the long term. And so we do that by taking direction from the workers, finding out what's going on across the country, and then seeing what creative tactics are happening and seeing if they make sense in our local context, and then going from there. And so I'm going to turn it over to Alicia. Alicia is a barista and organizer in Oklahoma City and a DSA member, and she is awesome. So I'm going to turn it over to her.
Thank you. All right, so today we are talking strikes, what they are, and how Starbucks workers organizing strikes and how we can best support them. Strikes are when workers withhold their labor. Workers have rights that are written down on paper, but those rights are not enforced many times, and organizing is the best way for workers to get what they deserve. A strike is not taking paid time off or an individual worker walking off the job or refusing to work unless it's for a safety issue. It's not when customers boycott, although workers can ask customers to support them through a coordinated and planned boycott. And if you want to go to the next slide. Different type of strikes include economic wildcat demonstration, recognition, and unfair labor practice. ULP strikes are when workers walk out to protest the boss for violating the National Labor Relations Act that include health and safety issues or boss retaliatory mistreatment of workers, including firings of union organizers. The steps to do a ULP strike are to submit a strike notice with info, the date of the strike, reason, necessitation of your legal right to strike, and the date that you will return to work. And you'll want to focus on the reasons that you're striking to coordinate all of your messaging, social media, leaflets, and whatnot. And if you want to go to the next slide. A demonstration strike or a work stoppage is when workers stop working for only a short period to highlight their demands to management. This could be accompanied by a demonstration with placards. A work stoppage can also be used in the run-up for a larger or longer strike. An economic strike is when the object of a strike is to obtain some economic concessions, such as higher wages, shorter hours, or better working conditions from the boss. The workers retain their status as employees and can't be fired, but they can be replaced by their employer. In this practice, this means they can be fired. A recognition strike happens when non-union workers refuse to work to force their employer to recognize their union and bargain a contract. A wildcat strikes are a quick response by workers to an issue which affects them or those that aren't called by union officials. Rank and file workers themselves organize the wildcat strike. The surprise element of a wildcat strike can shock management into accepting workers' demands. A picket line is where the workers demonstrate their strength and community support to pressure the company to meet their demands. It demonstrates visible strength against the company. It's usually at entrances to the workplace. So to enter the workplace, you must cross the picket line. And that's the end for my presentation about strikes. I want to introduce Kyla from Boston, who has been helping out at the longest strike in Starbucks history in Boston, pronouns are she, her. If you want to take it out from here, Kyla.
Yeah, thank you, Alicia. Um, yeah, so we've been on, it's almost like hard to keep count now, but I think we're at 29 days for our strike right now. And it's kind of turned into this 24/7 kind of camp, if you will, where we just constantly have a group of people on the picket line at all times. Many of them are actually folks from DSA who've continued to show up and help us staff the picket line all day long. And it's been a really great experience for the partners to kind of see what it's like to go on strike, specifically the ones in our other Boston areas. So we recently had like four other stores go on a week-long strike with them. And that included a store over in Worcester, and then the other stores were all within the same district. So I think the 874 strike really gave them a lot of inspiration to strike in the first place, but also a lot of them were saying they wanted to extend it because of 874. So it's been, I think, a really great place for folks to find some solidarity in the movement and some support. Um, and that's, I guess, like the biggest thing that's been going on. I'm happy to answer any questions too, or if there's anything specific that y'all would want to kind of hear about.
We usually keep the questions to the end, but we can totally open them up for you specifically. Let me, Heather, do you mind checking the chat for Stack? So does anyone have questions for Kyla? I can start it off and put myself first on Stack. When you say 274, like, was the reason why other stores, like, what did they see? Why did they want to join that?
Yeah, so initially we had been discussing doing like a big day of action on August 1st because that's when the new benefits were being rolled out. And so we already had stores talking about strikes and talking about their, thoughts on taking action. But a lot of them had also, between that time, had the opportunity to stop by the picket line at 874 and see what it's like to be on the picket. And I think just undeniably, when you're at a picket line and when you kind of feel the empowerment there, it's kind of hard to not want to do something similar at your stores. So they brought a lot of that energy back. And then when they went on their initial strike, I stopped by all their different picket lines. They all had their different kind of parties going on at the line, and we all kind of reconvened that night and started kind of talking about what folks thought. And they said, we want to keep going in solidarity with 874. They've been doing it this long. Let's see, how long can we do it? So for every couple of days, we just kind of would check in and take a vote to see how long people wanted to extend it so we could all coordinate the completion. But they definitely, I think we wouldn't have been doing a week-long strike if it weren't for 874 kind of, inspiring that. I also see in the chat any confrontation with management. So we've been in conversations with the district manager. We've had a few now, and he actually just he went on his second vacation this month. Um, like the second vacation in like 3 weeks. So unfortunately, we can't really get a hold of him right now, but we did send official contact information for the bargaining committee. And the workers are getting ready to kind of prepare what the demands are going to be when we talk with the district manager and whoever else. But we're currently in a delay. And then, yeah, Alicia, the Boston police have been out here recently. So for context, we went like 21, 22 days without really any police presence. It's a busy street, so it's not uncommon for a police officer to drive by or to stop by to grab food in the one of the shops nearby. But um, one morning, it was like around 5:15 a.m. and um, we basically saw like some managers come into the store, pulled up with like a U-Haul, and the police officers followed shortly after. So after that, they've just been continuously at the store every morning, just watching people. They recently brought a like prisoner arrest vehicle, like a big truck, right outside to kind of just like stake out for about 5 hours. Um, it's been really frustrating because the store's been shut down, completely closed. There's no scabs. There's no attempting to open the store, really. They did take away all of our patio furniture, and that's fine. We're kind of slowly working our way back into including that in our encampment. But in the meantime, it has been like frustrating to constantly have police presence when there's really nothing, there's no violence. It really only incites something. Um, and unfortunately, our mayor has been like very unresponsive to any calls to action. So we're kind of like working it out as we go. But um, we do have a lot of protesters or picketers who are really concerned about like what's going to happen if there is a random arrest of sorts. So we have legal observers at all times right now, as often as they can be, and we're preparing folks for like who to call if they get arrested and things like that. But it is a stressful experience for everybody. Um, and yeah, donuts, lots of donuts. Well, thanks so much, y'all. They're the Boston police. So it's really weird. So Boston and Brookline. So the store is technically in Brookline, but the line for Brookline is literally you can like draw it. It's right where the store entrance is. So like once you get past in the awning of the entrance and into the place, but right in front of it is Boston territory. So technically the Boston police can oversee it. It's a weird thing, but yeah. Well, thanks so much, y'all. I know Heather dropped our strike fund in the chat. I super appreciate that. We've been working out getting everybody their national strike checks, and also now that we're past that 2 week national strike fund guarantee, we've been having to pay through our regional funds. So we really appreciate any support, and a big shout out and thank you to all of the DSA members who've been showing up to our picket like every single day with food or support or just there to take the 2 to 4 a.m. shifts. It's made a huge difference. So thanks, y'all.
Can I actually ask, so when you say that DSA members have been really, really helpful, that's what we love to hear. That's what we want to happen across the country. Are there any like specific things that you could point to for chapters either in other cities or in smaller places that you found really helpful, that you would be like, this is a best practice, everyone should try this, or get
Yeah.
creative this way?
Yeah, I think what we've really loved about working with DSA members is that they are really there to support us. They're kind of always asking like, what is it that we need? What can they do to help? We've definitely had some people kind of tell us what to do. And I really appreciate that they're really like they offer advice and support as opposed to giving direction. Um, and they're down to take on like some of the tasks that are tedious too. Like we had a group of college DSA members stop by And we had all these flyers that we needed to get to every single one of the stores in our district to tell them not to pick up any shifts if they're asked. And we were like, oh man, like, how are we going to get to all of these different places today? And the four of them were like, yeah, we'll do it. We'll don't worry about it. You guys stay at the picket line. We'll take these. And that was just like a huge relief, I think, for everybody because like we wanted to stay at the picket, but like we needed that information out. So that was really helpful. And also just today they coordinated like a little rally of support for a store over in Reading that had their vote today. It's the first in-person election we had, and they just like showed up at a safe distance and like brought some like supportive signs and organized it really all for us, but like with our support, which took a lot of the organizing pressure off of the folks who were voting that day. So all of those things, like I could go on and on. DSA's been super, super helpful over here.
Thank you so much for sharing, Kyla. That was great. And all of these photos are really, really great. And like, we just really admire all the partners in Boston and their persistence.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Corey B. from Worcester DSA. He's going to talk about some of the support they've been doing. So I will turn it over to Corey.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm Corey, he, him from Worcester DSA, and I'm currently in Boston, technically Brookline, at Com Ave. It's right down the street. This kind of like little event going on in the picket line. I don't know if you can see it in the background, but I'm a little distant so that there's not too much noise in the background. Yeah, like for myself, I am a full-time like state employee, and currently trying to unionize there, but I also work part-time at a Target Starbucks. So definitely, solidarity to the Starbucks workers. In Worcester, we have, for our covered area, which is central Massachusetts, there are currently 2 unionized stores. One of them is 11 East Central Street in the city of Worcester proper. And from August 1st to August 7th, they were on strike. It was the ULP strike. And we tried to do everything that we could to support them. We were aware of it, in advance from being in communication with the workers there. And just to go into some of the things that we did or that I think, might be useful elsewhere in the country, I think that, one thing that we did do was we prepared picket signs in advance, and we just brought those in and made those available to everyone from the start of it. And if you see like a lot of the pictures, on Twitter or elsewhere on social media, people seem to like that, definitely. I think something that's worth considering, if you're going to get union printed like signs or like banners or other things like that, is that oftentimes there will be like labor unions in your area who have printing capabilities that they may be willing to like offer to your chapter or to Starbucks workers like directly. And so that's definitely something worth like looking into. I think also it's worth thinking about, like, if you have a Starbucks location that's on strike, how it's positioned in relation to like a road. So like this Starbucks that's down the street here is like literally just on Commonwealth Avenue, which is like a major sort of thoroughfare of sorts, near, essentially within Boston University. In Worcester, 11 East Central Street is like set back from the road, but it is near like a major intersection in the city. And so a really great thing for places like that where you're near a road that's well traveled is if you have like a big banner that essentially says something like honk, honk to show solidarity with the workers. And then just like the whole time when you have people out there with that banner, all the workers are going to hear like all these cars going by, like honking their horns. And I think that's really great for like morale and just like, general like spirits on the picket line. I think, another thing too is you can sort of see in this second image, the second slide that was just pulled up. We had a picket sign design that was like kindly made for us by a Boston DSA member, and we talked with them about it, and they were willing to, allow us to make that available to other chapters. And so, please do feel free to reach out to us at our website, which is just worcesterdsa.org. There's a contact form on there. And if you hit us up, we can make a file available to you. It's on Canva. It's really easy to work with. If you're interested in getting like picket signs union printed for your area. Let me see here. I have some notes. Definitely, I mean, obviously make sure that you like contact your members. If there's a strike going on, I mean, you want to get as many people as you can to the picket line just to show solidarity. And definitely too, like you want to encourage people to wear any sort of like DSA gear that they may have, or like union pins, or even just otherwise to wear red. And definitely take lots of photos as well, and like share them with communications for like your chapter, tag people, and also tag like DSA labor so that they can share it too. I think another thing is like try to get people there every day, every single day if you can, or at the very least like as often as you can and for as long as you can. And like definitely make sure that you're making an active effort to like talk to the workers. Like, you're not just there to be there for the sake of it. Like you actually want to try to build some relationships while you're at it. And also just like directly hear what people are going through, and also learn people's names, I think another thing too, in the course of doing that, and beforehand too, if you already have like active communication with the workers, is you want to be talking with them about like things that they may need for the strike, right? So, for example, like with Worcester, it was a super hot week. It was like temperatures were near like 100 degrees. There were some really, really humid days in the course of that as well. And so like some of the things that the workers needed were like drinks, or like coolers with ice, or they needed like a 10 by 10 canopy. And these were things that we were able to sort of help with. I mean, here, at 874 Com Ave, I mean, one of the things that Kyla mentioned is that the police, they went and took away the patio furniture. And so I think Boston DSA's like city councilor, Kendra Lara, got some chairs. So, it could be something as simple as that. I think also, if you're doing something like getting bottled water, or you're getting like snacks or whatever for a picket line, definitely worth just doing a quick Google search and being like union made groceries. And there's like AFL-CIO lists, other like unions that put out stuff like that. And there's plenty of like union made goods out there. So that's definitely worth like trying to buy union if you can. And ideally from like a union supermarket or something. Like ours in Worcester is Stop and Shop. And, there are other like union supermarkets around the country in many cases. And then, post about it online and like tag some of these unions. I know, in our case, we put up, I think, like an Instagram story or something about it. And BCTGM like shared it on their story on their Instagram. That was kind of cool. I think also you want to bring up the picket line, the strike, I should say, with like other unions that your chapter or like your members may be in contact with or even members of. And, part of that, again, is for like turnout. Part of it also is that they can have potentially like resources as well. So I know that in Worcester, like we have a member who's in the Carpenters, and the Carpenters offered one of the canopies that we had out for people on those really hot days, which was super helpful. And then the Massachusetts Nurses Association, who we worked really closely with for strike support last year on the St. Vincent nurses strike, they provided a lot of printing, which was also super helpful. I think that it's also worth like really outside of strikes themselves, it's worth having, I think, a solidarity forum for your chapter or shared across chapters even, where you can sign up like community supporters who are interested in solidarity actions in your area. Like, obviously there's a Starbucks one. We want to sign up people for that one. We want to sign people up for that one too. But I think there's a benefit also to having a general one for your chapter, which is for like all matter of solidarity events, because you might be doing some sort of like tabling somewhere or like whatever, you're at some sort of event, signing people up for things. And it could be a thing that's entirely unrelated to Starbucks, but in the course of that, you can potentially find people who'd be interested in Starbucks solidarity actions down the road that you can then hit up when there's something like a strike in your area. I think I think another thing that's maybe not directly related to strikes, but which I think has been just very useful to our chapter is having a statewide DSA publication, which in our case is Working Mass. And so, you know, with Working Mass, there are a lot of great opportunities to like talk with workers, get to know workers, because we do interviews and then we like publish those interviews on Working Mass's website. And it's just an incredible way to like, again, sort of build contacts in labor unions or among like organizing committees, different things like that. And that's actually part of the way that we got two other unions to bring out some of their members to the picket line in Worcester, you know, Teamsters, and then some grad workers from a university in Worcester that's organizing, is that we had done like interviews with them in the past for articles for Working Mass. And so we just like had those contacts, those sort of relationships on the books, which just proved to be really useful then and, you know, continuing to today. I think another thing too, which again, you sort of see behind me is, especially if it's a longer sort of strike, that's going to be more of a sustained sort of thing. Definitely, it's great if you can work with the workers to put on events on the picket line, or even work with like other unions to put on events on the picket line. Like right now, they're having like a dance party basically back there, and they had a swing dancing lesson earlier. And I remember, again, with the St. Vincent nurses strike last year, you know, Worcester DSA, we put together like salsa dancing lessons on the picket line. We had ice cream socials. We had a barbecue for May Day. We had trick-or-treating during Halloween. I mean, this was like a 301-day strike. So every holiday you could think of, like there was a DSA event and then some. So, you know, definitely if there are things like that going on, take advantage of that. I think it's great to get people out there for things like that. You know, you could definitely get some like interesting people from the broader community who maybe otherwise wouldn't think to come out for something like a labor solidarity event. But yeah, I think generally just the way I sort of think about it is you want to be as present as possible. You want to communicate as much as possible, and you want to be as useful as possible to the workers. And that can take material forms. It can also take the form of just like providing advice if they're interested in that, or literally just providing like moral support, which I know is something that workers definitely need when they're in like a workplace where they maybe have like a terrible manager who's, you know, essentially trying to force them out by just making their working life, you know, hell. And that's everything that workers are trying to change by unionizing. So yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Wow. I'm such a fan of Corey and Worcester DSA. They do such amazing strike support. Heather shared a link to their website, and it has pictures of Starbucks support all over the country. Corey is going to be sharing a link to that poster if people want to customize it for their area and their store. We usually do questions at the end, but I think Corey also is at the picket line. So if any folks have questions for Corey, please get on Stack or put your question in the chat. I can start it off. So actually, you mentioned the nurses strike. So I know you learned a lot there that you're applying here. Is there anything like in specific, like, you know, because they're very different workplaces, like that you would talk about like the difference, like how to show up and what's helpful and what's not in these different types of workplaces?
I think one thing that's definitely different is that, you know, naturally the Starbucks workers are like a lot younger, right? So that's like an obvious difference. And there are certain differences, I think, in just people's politics, you know, naturally as a result of that. And I think something that we really learned, you know, in the course of the nurses strike was like, you got to meet people where they're at. You have to meet workers where they're at. And, you know, there were police on the picket line at St. Vincent Hospital, and they were nominally there to protect the hospital against these dangerous striking nurses. And sorry. I think everyone sort of knows how we a lot of people showing support, as you can sort of hear maybe. I think you all sort of know how we maybe feel about cops, but the nurses didn't necessarily share our exact views on that. They have their own views, and I think there was this one day I remember there was this horrible accident in the city of Worcester, and there was a cop who drowned trying to save someone who was drowning. And I remember the nurses were really touched by that emotionally, and they decided to hold a vigil on the picket line for this cop who died. And we had previously been scheduled to do an event that day. I think it was like a poetry slam on the picket line. It was something like that. It was something that involved audio equipment that we had brought out. Actually, a member of South Shore DSA had brought all the way out to Worcester for this event for the nurses. And I just remember, at the last moment, we heard about this as it was sort of starting to wrap up. And, the nurses asked us if we would lend the sound system for this vigil for this cop. And, it was an easy choice. I mean, we, of course, just said yes. I mean, we want to be as useful to the workers as possible. And that was something that was just very important to them. And yeah, so I think that's definitely a difference. I think the picket line at St. Vincent Hospital was also much more difficult in a way because it was going much longer. It wasn't quite 24/7, but it was much longer in terms of the hours per day than the strike at 11 East Central Street Starbucks in Worcester. And also the ground that had to be covered for that was much larger because you have this essentially massive hospital that has like two main sides that you need to cover. And you also had scabs, in this case, actively coming in and out of the hospital, which added another dimension that, at least I think here in Massachusetts, we haven't really seen for these Starbucks strikes as of yet. So that was something where we kind of had to educate our members about, okay, I mean, not to say that you wouldn't do this for the Starbucks strikes too, but like a little bit more so we had to educate our members about like, okay, this is how you act, properly on a picket line. And particularly if you see like scabs, coming in and out, this is the sort of bounds that you should stay within. So yeah, if that answers the question.
Yes, and then some. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I don't see another question here, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but thank you so much, Corey. And Corey also said that we can reach out to Worcester's website if you have any questions or want to chat about strike support. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
And up next, we have Jacob True from DSA Eugene Springfield. He's the coordinating committee treasurer, and he is also here with Gavin, the head of their coordinating committee and lead of their labor working group as well. Take it away, Jacob.
Hello. Yes, I'm Jacob, he, him. Our situation is a little bit unique. We were fortunate enough to have the first store in Oregon to declare their union, their desire to form a union, had the first vote, and shortly thereafter, the rest of the town voted. The rest of the Starbucks in the town got a chance to vote, and everyone but one formed a union. So in our town of about 250,000 people, we have 8 corporate Starbucks stores, and 7 of them are union, which is pretty tremendous. From
7 and 6.
7 and 8. Delta, VRC, EMU, Franklin and Villard, 29th Willamette, West 11th, and 7th in Washington.
My bad. I always forget about EMU.
Yep, EMU too. So Oakway was the only one who didn't get there, but what we did throughout the process was make sure that as stores were trying to unionize, that we reached out through social media posts and just kept saying, hey, what can we do to support? What can we do to support? We'd put up, when we'd be able to get in contact with folks and we'd get permission from the workers, we'd put up signs at the community boards inside the stores, outside, stapled up on telephone poles, that sort of thing. Just continually saying, hey, we're here, we're ready to help. Some other orgs also were trying to help out, but of all of them, the Eugene Springfield DSA sort of showed that we were the ones who would show up and who would be there, you know, whenever they needed us. So things had gone pretty well. They had a couple demonstration strikes after gaining their unions that were relatively, you know, 1 or 2 days, and we were there every single day and helping bring logistical supplies, you know, awnings, tables, chairs, basically anything that they needed. So when it came to the larger strike action that happened recently, they were like, okay, who are we going to call? We're going to call Eugene DSA, you know, the Eugene Springfield DSA. They're the ones who show up. They're the ones who help out. So this strike action that started out with one of the stores, 29th Willamette. A lot of pictures are from there. Started a strike a week ago Monday, and continued into the week. And then on Wednesday, one of the other stores that were more militant and more ready to go were having a demonstration strike. That's when something truly wonderful happened, and here's where I'm going to let Gavin jump in and explain what happened on Wednesday of last week.
Thanks, Jacob. Sorry about earlier. Appreciate you passing time over to me. So the West 11th location walked out on their manager. I mean, so the workers had voted for their union, you know, just like 7 out of 8 of the stores in Eugene. They'd already been recognized by the NLRB, but just like all the other stores, no contract negotiations. And the manager can feel the tension in the air and feeling the heat with the strikes going on at the 2 other stores. You've got 2 stores going on strike, and this manager looks at their employees and says, I want you all to know that you're replaceable. You know, I've got your replacements lined up and ready to go if any of you are thinking about going on strike. And one of the workers there, one of the people who had been one of the lead organizers for the union, you know, just walked out, and the whole store, the whole shift, you know, walked out with him in solidarity over the next couple of minutes. It was kind of chaotic, you know, over the next 30 minutes, people slipped out without saying anything, just, you know, run over to the punch clock, go out, and they organized a quick little picket line outside their store. And immediately when we heard this, we sent somebody down there to talk with the workers and ask them what they needed. You know, like, that's what it is getting out there early and often. And then Jacob and I have been working through 2 mantras, you know, make it easy, make it fun, and action breeds action. The West 11th store walking out electrified the labor scene. It electrified all of the other unions in the area. They had no plan, no anything to do this, but they are, day 5, day 6? Yeah, I think they're on day 6 of their strike. And it's just been incredible. The workers have decided to all get together. That's one thing that the DSA did do, is provide our national Zoom account and set up a meeting time for organizers from each of the stores to meet up to organize on our Zoom account. And they started talking, and they organized how to shut down all the union stores in Eugene over the next couple of days. So today we had 6 stores on strike, and tomorrow we're shutting down the boss's HQ. They've been holed up in this one location, and they were able to keep it open with this one anti-union shift, but we got a pro-union shift taking over at about 10:30, and we're going to picket in front of them, and they're going to walk out, and we're going to have all union stores shut down for 2 days. And yeah, another thing that the DSA can do is just using our extensive contact list. Like, hopefully you've been building community relationships over in Eugene. We've got organizations like Neighborhood Anarchists Collective, the Housing and Neighborhood Defense Alliance, all of these mass orgs, these radical organizers In addition to the trade unions, we contacted the local SEIU and the AFSCME and other unions as such. We've also been pretty liberal in using the DSA budget for printing. I think we've printed well over 400 posters and probably an equal amount of little half leaflet flyers for the picket lines and to post on telephone poles. Also just coordinating the community support. So gathering a list of names and numbers of the people who want to help and giving them jobs. So printing out a ton of posters and then sitting down together in a meeting on a Zoom call with a map in front of you and saying, you guys go get in that neighborhood, you guys go get in that neighborhood. One thing we've done at the picket line that I think is really fun is we printed out a physical map and we're marking out with red marker all of the neighborhoods that we have posted around. So yeah, any check, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we have another speaker. Is it okay if we leave questions to the end? Thank you. Oh, sorry, there was one more thing. Jacob shared this picket line do's and don'ts that they were giving out. Do you want to talk a little bit, Jacob, about some of the do's and don'ts that we like to let people know about?
Absolutely. And I must give credit to earlier folks in our chapter who developed this picket line do's and don'ts, but part of it, we've been working along with it. The trick is, I can sort of condense this down quite a bit, is that like, be there, be clear in that you are from DSA or whatever sort of mass org you're from, and be like, and so, but don't proselytize. So I don't go there saying, hey, have you heard about this great thing called socialism? Like, boy, howdy, it's awesome. But if they ask about it, tell them. Don't hide it. Don't do anything. Have it on your shirt and have the workers know that, oh yeah, the people who showed up, the people who helped, the people who gave critical support, that was the socialist. Yeah. So it's really important not to proselytize, but be there and be clear, like, hey, yeah, I'm with DSA, I've got the shirt on, everything. But the do's and don'ts are how you can support the picket, ask why they're on strike, know what's going on, be positive, and yeah, what you really don't want to do is take on a leadership role, because part of the goal is that you're not trying to have it be the DSA show. You're wanting it to be like supporting the workers, so they are becoming their own, organizing activist, folks, and accomplishing their own side of things. And that can be very frustrating at times because, yeah, you don't want to have, the tactics that you might think are most effective aren't necessarily the ones that they think are the most effective. But be there and be ready. One of the things that resonates in my mind is that one of the stores that, was mostly one of the stores that was like, hey, we have a good manager. We like our manager. But over time, as pressure from higher above, they were like, well, our manager, they've had a villain turn. They've gone from being a nice manager, good manager, to just being worse and worse over time. So then they're ready for, more and bigger actions like going out on strike, everything else along the line, you know what I mean? So, yeah. And yeah, don't just cluster with people talk to people, and don't use this as an opportunity to promote a DSA campaign unless you're asked about, hey, what are you up to? Then you can mention about it, and if they want more, do it more. But nothing turns off, folks more than feeling like you're not there for them, but you're there to use them. So, yeah. A lot of it boils down to don't be a jerk, and remember that, you're here to support the workers. But anyway, thank you.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Jacob and Gavin. So up next, we have Sarah, who is an amazing worker organizer, barista from Seattle, who's going to be talking about Labor Day calls to action. So this is a little, just some photos of what's going on in Seattle, but Sarah, please take it away.
Yeah, no, it's definitely all rainbows and beautiful picket line cups in Seattle. That's definitely the entirety of what's going on here. I'm actually going to briefly throw this to Tyler from Boston because they've done a lot of really good work with Labor Day sit-ins and that kind of stuff. And frankly, like I've been on a few DSA calls pitching the Adopt a Store, and I think it would be great to hear from somebody, not me, about it.
For sure. Well, thank you, Sarah, and hello, everybody. It is nice to be here and meet you all. I fully would love to be at more of these meetings. I apologize for not being at more of these meetings earlier, but it is great to be here. So for Labor Day, I'm not sure how much information has already been shared with everyone regarding Labor Day. So I'll give a brief synopsis, and then folks can kind of like, let me know what their questions are. And if we want to wait till the end, that's totally fine. In sum, so Colin Pollitt from Oklahoma City had initially reached out to our National Community Support Committee to discuss Labor Day, which is great because it was something that was on a lot of our minds, especially after May Day, of like, okay, well, how do we keep these actions going and building up more solidarity demonstrations? So the proposal that we all sort of collaborated on and worked together with, and inspired by Alicia Humphrey's wonderful article in the Jacobin regarding reproductive justice and the labor movement. If you haven't read that, please do. Alicia, feel free to self-promote and drop that link. The discussion we had was, how do we rise to the occasion and say, look, this is a burgeoning labor movement, unlike what we've seen in a very long time. And we have to meet every single moment that we are currently living through, which is a lot. So really, it boils down to intersectionality, right? And massive solidarity building. So the proposal is this. First and foremost, we want folks from every region, ideally, to be as involved in this as possible. And so we really need, everybody to be 10 toes down for this proposal. And what that looks like is this. So first and foremost, reaching out and seeing, ideally with your local labor councils, but also with other unions and labor groups who are doing demonstrations on Labor Day. No need to reinvent the wheel, get connected and figure out how we can sort of unify whatever's happening on Labor Day and turn it into one massive demonstration, right? So for example, out here in Boston, we collaborate with the Greater Boston Labor Council, and we're going from their legislative breakfast, which they have every year. It's usually a bunch of suits talking about how great labor is. This year, it's a little bit different. It is going to be a lot more direct. It's going to be folks from unions and labor groups throughout the Greater Boston area, talking about issues at the legislative breakfast, and then meeting up with other organizers and directly walking to support a picket line for hotel workers who are in a contract dispute. And then going from there to one of our historic government buildings, either Faneuil Hall or the Government Center, and holding a rally in which workers from all these different groups and affinity groups speak on different intersectional issues that tie into labor. From there, that's where the Starbucks action sort of takes off. The goal is to, from the rally, turn it into a day of direct action for Starbucks workers. Ideally, we would start the day by having workers in stores who are strike ready join the rally as striking workers. Do a concerted demonstration and discussion around the fact that they chose to strike and withhold their labor on Labor Day. If that's not necessarily in the cards, we ask that stores take other actions, such as sip-ins, which I know DSA has been wonderful at facilitating and supporting, marches on the boss, and other sort of similar tactics, such as leafleting and tabling, and holding discussions around ways that the community can support. I know Sarah from Seattle has mentioned many times the Adopt a Store program and the No Contract, No Copy pledge. This is the time to get as many people who have not already signed up for that to sign up for it. We've also discussed coordinating graphics that can be used as like a national template where you just plug in your local information to it so that there's like a sort of streamlined imagery that everybody is utilizing so that you can't really escape it if you see it on social media or locally, that we're all working together. Additionally, outside of the direct action, we're hoping that the day, Labor Day, can conclude with an evening panel discussion watch party. We're discussing putting together an evening panel with labor leaders, reproductive justice rights advocates, and other organizers around different intersectional issues, racial justice, gender justice, queer and LGBTQ advocacy and rights, and whatever other issues folks feel is imperative to have on this panel. And if you would like to fill that information out for your region and you haven't yet, I will drop a link in the chat. So all of this to say, we would like to have one massive coordinated national day of action on Labor Day. And it is imperative that we get as many regions to sign on to this. And I think that DSA not only has been the best, quite frankly, or one of the best constant supporters of workers throughout this. So DSA's role here could be, working in tandem with these regional Starbucks organizers to make this a concerted effort and to get them connected with as many local supporters and union leaders as possible, to make it as wide in scope as possible. So that is the pitch. I can drop that information in the chat as well, so that folks have multiple points of access for this information. But I'll also open it up to any questions. I know that there's going to be a little more discussion around Adopt a Store and no contract, no coffee. So that is my piece, but I'm happy to speak more if anyone has any questions or thoughts or need follow up.
Thank you, Tyler. That was really well said. And very, very informative. I think you guys can see why I chose to throw it to Tyler for a minute. Yeah, so I think in addition to Adopt a Store, which Adopt a Store is great for organizations like DSA, other labor unions to really want to get hands-on involved. I think that the No Contract, No Coffee pledge is a really good way to engage the people who aren't in a really concerted labor organization, but just your friends and family who sort of idly support workers, but are not quite at a level where they're going to always be committed to a biweekly phone call or some of these concerted activities. But it's a great way for them to just stay in the loop with what the Starbucks workers are experiencing in those areas. We do have this, so this feeds into a spreadsheet that we use to basically send out hyper localized alerts. So if a store is going on strike in an area, people in that city who have signed this pledge will get an alert so that they know they can go join the picket. Or if there's a rally or something like that. So I think No Contract, No Coffee is absolutely great and imperative to share with your DSA members, but also just to encourage you to share it with your friends and family too, who are sympathetic to labor. Yeah, I think that's everything I have. Aisha, am I forgetting anything? Probably forgetting something.
No, I guess I know my question was, should people be waiting to hear back before starting to plan? Because on the form you give different options like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or sorry, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and different times. Should they be waiting to hear back before going ahead with details and things like that?
Yes, so we are going through a very concerted matchmaking process on the back end right now and trying to link up, because of course we have Starbucks Workers United union shops scattered around the country. We have supporters scattered around the country, and so it's doing a lot of Alicia can also testify to what we're working on just sort of trying to put all of the pieces together. And fortunately, Adopt a Store, we have a premium problem here, which is that so many people have signed up for Adopt a Store that it's wow, we really have a lot of support and we've got to figure out where to get them all to. So you will hear from us what stores to go ahead with. But I think starting to make internal plans with your local DSA chapter is not a bad thing. So you can start to arrange oh, we would be really able to mobilize a lot of members on one of these days, versus the other. And so then by the time we get into the matchmaking, hey, this is a store in your area that's really asking for support, you already kind of have a good idea of oh, this would be a good day for us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, great. So we have two more things we're going to talk about, and then we'll open it up to questions, which I know people have a lot of. We skipped this slide about strike funds. So when you go on strike, you potentially lose different, your wages and benefits and things. And so strike funds are really, really important. Workers United set up a very well publicized $1 million strike fund, but that covers 70% of workers' wages. And like Kyla said, there's also like a time limit. So there are additional strike funds locally. We shared the Boston one. And there's also a national strike relief fund, or I guess it's called a relief fund. It's the coworker fund. And we are going to share that. You can set up monthly recurring donations through that, which will be very helpful like over the long run. So we can share that in the chat. And then there's another way that DSA members who are union members can help support. So I'm going to throw it to Heather to talk a little bit about this.
Sorry, just throwing things in the chat here, getting carried away. Yes, so one of the exciting things around Labor Day is like this is an opportunity for those of us who are union members often to like reconnect with our unions. This is a time of year that there's usually some sort of union event, or you might be doing some union outreach. And also I wanted to just flag for you, if you are a union member, like quarterly meetings are coming up for unions. So this is a good time to try and involve your union in some solidarity action and hopefully make it a little bit more militant and radical. Frankly, like this is something that I'm trying to do in mine as well. So I realize this is a struggle, but one of the easiest things we can do as a rank and file union member, and since some of you aren't, some of you may be members of your labor working group locally, so you may want to bring this up with them, is to bring a resolution forward to your union. Like this is just practicing democracy, right? So we've written up a little sample resolution here. And since there's not a ton of time right now, I just got my email. So we have a little bit, you can reach out and we can talk about this a bit more. But the idea here is we're trying to show our unions that like, we really have to stand behind these Starbucks workers right now, because we need to get Starbucks to the table so these workers can win a contract. And it is going to take a lot to force this, apparently. I mean, I don't think it's any surprise that Capital doesn't want this to succeed, but reading in the news today, some of you may see that Starbucks is even going after the NLRB at this point. Like, this is extremely important, not just for socialism. This is for like anyone who's remotely interested in democracy in this country, is for fair union elections to be able to proceed. So this is something that is actually pretty easy to talk to your fellow union members about. One of the things that we would like to do here, though, also is to build up this strike and defense fund for our Starbucks partners. And like you and me can maybe give a couple of bucks a week to a fund. Our unions often are capable of giving a bit more than that, because we pool our money, we pool our resources in dues, and those dues can then be voted on to use to support whatever we want. And I would rather see, personally, my dues money going towards supporting the strike fund than some lackluster milquetoast Democrat who isn't going to pass labor laws anyways. Like this is a way to like, let's go, let's use the power of our unions to really support other workers. The other thing that I wanted to just say really, really briefly here, I know we had some questions last time about salting, and we don't have a ton of time to get into this right now, but we are working on a presentation about this. So if you want to learn more, you can. And I have a little form. If salting, which is taking a job strategically to organize in a workplace, is something that you're considering at any workplace, go ahead and fill this out and we'll talk to you a bit more about it in the interim. And we'll definitely do a lot more education pieces in the future. I'm gonna pass it back to Aisha.
Thank you so much, Heather. Yeah, I mean, a lot is on the line right now, and that is why we are all so excited to support Starbucks workers and all workers right now. So we have the link to the National Coworker Fund. Sarah shared the Pacific Northwest Fund. Thank you so much, Sarah. Our next call is in 2 weeks on August 29th, and it's going to be about Labor Day, the history of Labor Day. And so hopefully we will see you back here. And now I'm going to open it up for questions. So we have time